Okay. So let me load everybody in. And who else? Oh, we have Natasha. Hang on. We got to hold the phone. Oh, yeah. We'll wait for you as well. Can't start without Natasha getting online. I'll wait. I'll hold up the whole webinar just to make sure that she's okay. Or she just wants to hang out before she wants to talk. That's fine. Okay. I'll assume everybody's going to come in device, so let's get this going. All right. So hello, everyone out there. This is the third community of practice for the Global Virtual Design Sprint. If you don't know what the Global Virtual Design Sprint is, I would encourage you to go to virtualdesignSprint.com. It's essentially an international community of practitioners, facilitators, designers, developers that all get together, I think, twice a year now to basically use the design sprint process and other processes to work through different types of problems, challenges, ideas, getting towards solutions that we can showcase to everyone else. With me for this particular Notion walkthrough that we're doing today are a few people that I have seen and worked with in the GVDS. In fact, there's more coming in as we kind of goes past the 8 o'clock. So I think it's worth doing some brief introductions for everybody, so everyone knows on the panelist side who they are and what they do. And I also want you to also say what your experience with is with Notion. If you're a beginner, an intermediate, an expert, or if you're the authority on Notion, and you can take over for me and just basically tell everyone about what Notion is. So I'm going to start with Elisa. Elisa, if you could tell us who you are, where you're from, and your Notion experience.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Elisa. I'm from Italy. I live in Trento. I'm an organizational psychology specialized in design thinking and innovation consultant. And my knowledge about Notion is minus 10.
You mean
but
you
I'm
just
very
figured?
Curious, and I learned fast.
Okay, but you before it was just a word, and now you realize it's an application. You're wondering if you came to the right webinar. I got it.
No, well, actually, I have an account, so I am inside my account right now. So I think I am a beginner.
Yeah. Hey, actually, we're on the same page. I have my account open too, and everything's like welcome. Inputted a lot of stuff, and that's where I'm at. So cool. Glad we're on the same page. Let's move on to Omar Corona. Omar, why don't you tell us who you are, where you're from, and your illustrious Notion experience?
Yeah. Hi. I'm originally from California, both California and Baja California, Mexico. So I kind of grew up on both sides of the border, bounced back and forth quite a bit. And I've lived in the States and in Mexico, like half and half, literally, my whole life. And so right now, currently, I'm outside of Guadalajara, Mexico, in a big lake called Lake Chapala, the second in Latin America, the second largest in Latin America. And just work from here as a product manager remotely for a top management consulting firm. And my experience with Notion, I've been using it probably for the last 4 months daily. I think I have like my work set up a lot more organized, but my personal setup is like all over the place, because I think I kind of have a lot of things that I want to track, that I want to put in databases, a lot of templates that I want to try out. So I'm kind of experimenting with a bunch of stuff and seeing what works, so I can kind of create a dashboard that works for me.
Yeah, from my understanding is that Notion can do a lot of things well, but it's when you put so much in there and you have to reorganize and go, okay, where is everything? That's where you have to have that hub that you're thinking about. Yeah, I've seen that too.
And I would recommend really. I still haven't done this because I just have so much there that I'd recommend like actually sitting down and thinking like, okay, what is it that I need to do like quickly now? What's like the hourly thing I need to do? What's a minute by minute or daily thing or monthly thing? And then kind of structure it from there, because I just kind of jumped in like full on like, oh, I'm going to put all my books in here and I'm going to do my daily logs here and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I just created this massive list, and there's duplicate lists and stuff. So it's kind of a bit all over the place.
Good luck to you.
Yeah.
Well, we're also going to be going through our own here. So, Niels, somebody I frequently say their first and last name incorrectly. In fact, I can't even get their email address properly. But all in all, tell us who you are, where you're located at, and your experience with Notion.
Thank you. I'm used to that people misspell my name or pronounce it correctly.
I'm owning up to it.
It's no worries. No worries. It's my whole life, but I'm okay with it. No, I'm from Berlin, and I work as a design thinking coach and design sprint coach, and also as a consultant in business design, everything in freelance, and. My experience with Notion is a bit like Elisa's, not -10, but at least like -1 or 0. I have never opened that software program, whatever. I don't have a login, but it came quite often across me now this year because everybody was talking about so many tools that could help you during those remote setups and things like that. So I'm really interested in getting to know it. And as it is part of this platform here, I think it couldn't be too bad. So there should be some reason why some people actually spend their time with it. So I'm really looking forward to this.
It has some appeal, if some. Yeah, there's some people using it, here and there. So figured we explore it, right? Okay. All right, cool. Thanks, Niels. Natasha, let's go to you. Who are you? Where are you located? And tell us, You're probably a Notion expert, correct? You've worked at like 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I've worked with it for 2-3 years, but I don't know if I would call myself an expert, but I love Notion and I'm a huge advocate. And I think a year and a half ago, I gave a presentation to a group of people at a company about why they should use Notion. So I think that people should use it, is the short answer. I started using it a couple of years ago because I was a huge Evernote user, but then just found they weren't building into that product in the way that I wanted. And whenever they stopped supporting products, I'm like, oh no, is it going away? Is it going to die? So then started looking for alternatives, and I was looking for like a way to kind of externalize my mind. And so Notion was my solution. Where am I from? I think I forgot to say where I was from. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. The sun has not yet risen here. I don't know, I can show you. Still early morning. And yeah, was that all the questions you asked?
I think that was it. Yeah. In fact, I think Notion the marketing department should probably get a hold of you for some of the phrasing around how the tool has impacted, your usage. So
cool. you work at Notion.
Oh, right. Yes. I'm secretly just bombing into the moon. Yeah.
Nice. That's very cool.
Covert operative here today.
Yeah. Oh.
I also haven't had coffee, so I might just go and grab my coffee because I heard the thing beep. Is that okay?
Yeah, why don't you do it right now for dramatics? Go ahead and walk off camera while you're, there you go. Susanna, you're up next. Tell us who you are, where you're from, your Notion experience, and anything you got going in the background that you need to attend to.
Nothing going on in the background. I'm Susanna Childers. I'm a facilitator of innovation and creativity. And I'm in North Carolina in the United States. And the sun is already up here. So I'm ahead of some of you, behind some of you. My Notion experience is big zero. I actually just opened it while we were talking. So I don't even know if that counts as having an account, but I'm always curious to learn new tools that can increase efficiency, and doing a lot more remote facilitation these days. So interestingly, while I'm behind, Omar and Natasha on some of these, I'm way ahead of a lot of people. So I'm always looking for new ways to learn, stay organized, and get teams working together better. So that's me.
Very cool. And for those of you who are attending, I know there's about a dozen of you, a little under a dozen. There's also some people on YouTube. If you'd like, and if you want to tell us, let us know where you're from, where you're coming in from. Yasir, if you feel interested, you can come and join us over in the panelist side. Same with Abel, because both of you, I know Abel's has experience with it. But yeah, if any of you could tell us where you're from, please do. At some point during the entire session as well, we'll ask everyone if they want to network to post their LinkedIn URL, so that if you want to check out who's come to this particular community of practice event, then you can get to know them a little bit better offline. So let's see. So far, we got Abel. He's the only person that's going to tell us he's from the Philippines. And I already knew that because I've worked with Abel for a couple of years. So it's good. It's glad you're still in the Philippines, Abel. All right. Okay, so the way this is going to work is I'm going to share my screen when it comes to Notion, and I'm going to kind of walk through some different things that are there. Since Natasha and Omar collectively have a bit more experience than probably some of us on the call, I welcome both of them to kind of comment on different things when I go through the interface and as I kind of explain the tool itself. If anyone on the attendee side would like to ask questions or point out some things that I may be missing or not stating about Notion at any given time, then all you have to do is just speak up and let me know. But yeah, we'll kind of take it from there. So it looks like Yasir is still from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. He has no idea what Notion is, so that's good. He matches a lot of us here. Dapo is strangely sunny and mild in London, England. Very nice. Okay, so let's get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I've got the right tab up so that we're all looking at the same thing. Let me bring this up over here. And I want to give a shout out to Tatiana Hernandez Rico. She's from Colombia, been living in Paris, and she's our one representative on YouTube. Right. So let me see here. Plus, if there's any particular questions or things about Notion that you want me to cover while we're in this walkthrough, feel free to go ahead and put them into the Q&A or into chat, and then we'll get to them. But let's start with kind of an overview of the interface. And basically, for reference, I'm what you would say somebody who started on Notion very, very early, like right around the time it was coming out. And I knew what it was back then. It felt like a kind of a dynamic spreadsheet application where you could put different modules and components into a layout, a very top level layout of what you're looking to get and to be able to sort and organize your information. Since that time that I tried it, it's kind of expanded into a lot of different things. Now, for reference, I'm using the personal version of Notion, and I think it's worth kind of going into that really fast. Let me see if I can get out of this. And if I can't, then that's okay. Hang on a second. Yeah, we actually have one for Team Bunyan. Yeah, we'll start here. So there's there are different levels of Notion, different accounts. The personal one is fairly limited, but it gives you a kind of an understanding of everything you need to know about Notion. You can practice it, you can put in information, you can expand on your workspace. For the one that's team-based is where you have your private workspace and then your team workspace, something that's public to everyone. Usually in those scenarios, your private one are mostly used for shortcuts and listings, and you can also put your own information in there if you'd like to, just for reference. And then the team workspace can be things for like projects and other stuff. So let's kind of go over the interface a bit. So on this left side here, you can basically access pretty much all of your Notion accounts that you're linked to. What we did before for one of the global virtual design sprints is that we actually tried out Notion and had someone on our team kind of get into it and put in a whole bunch of information. So I'm going to open this up to kind of showcase what that's like. But this is a quick way of kind of going, if you're use Notion, you're linked to a whole bunch of different stuff. It's a quick way to kind of get through things. The caret over here basically closes and opens the sidebar so that basically you can have it on the left and then you can just drift your mouse over to see it. So it's kind of convenient, but I'll have it open for the purposes of kind of going over this. And by the way, I'm just going to talk for 4 minutes. So this is not going to be me continually talking your ear off for half an hour. That's not the intention here. Let's go back to up here. So again, like other tools like Slack and others, you can use Quick Find to basically find what you're looking for. You can look at recent particular things that people have updated. Over here, there's settings and members. It'll give you an idea of everything related to who's on this particular board, as well as inviting other people there. Most of this is admin related in terms of like upgrades, billing, and so forth. I like dark mode. Not many people do, but for the purposes of going through the walkthrough, I'm just going to make it light, kind of go from there. And let's see. So that pretty much is like the very top level view. And then your workspace itself, all of these, if you think about it, and if you're a fan of information architecture, this is basically structured information. And each layer or each level of the information has its own complexity. So what Notion does is it tends to kind of organize a lot of complex information and put it in the same space. But it really, the way to think about it is it's a dynamic database tool. This is one particular example in tools and resources where there's a lot of different information, but all of these are particular categories that can be customized for the type of information that you want. You just basically have to select on it, and you can basically put in all sorts of, there's all sorts of subcommands in here depending on the nature of the column. So as you can tell, when I went to the name, you can basically do the title, sort of sending, you can do all sorts of things with the information that's here. But on the tag side of things, you can also, there's a different submenu based on the nature of what kind of thing is here. So the property type is basically an example of what would be this, the kinds of things can be in this particular tag or this particular section. Same with this. You can tell as I'm going from column to column that each of these changes in terms of the kinds of options that you can have. There is a lot of advanced stuff here, but I will wait for Natasha to kind of tell me how to do that, because I know that besides a researcher, she's an expert coder. But that's essentially that's the core of what Notion is. It's basically using this to basically not only sort information, but to link to it in various different ways. And hopefully we'll get into that as well in the walk-up. So this is a relation where somebody basically connects to another aspect of information within Notion. And let me go into some of these other ones so we're not spending too much time there. So research, this is another view in Notion. So one thing to know is that Notion has different views of the information. This is a table one. This one is more of a panel. Usually you can do this when you create a new page, and we'll get into that a little bit later. You can also add a particular view right here. So this one is a table, but you can do all these different ones to see how these particular, all this information kind of gets together. Oh, well, I can create a new one anyway. So it's adding a different one. Meetups, this is an example of Notion's calendar. So Notion has its own built-in calendar module inside of it, and you can link all sorts of different information from your different sections in Notion into this calendar. It's just a matter of linking them together. And this is an example of tasks. So basically, this is an aspect of a Kanban board where you have your not started, you're in progress, and completed. And it acts just like if you were a Trello user. It's very similar to this. Each of these has its own bit of information, all sorts of different microdata aspects to it. You can add particular to-do items and so on, but all these pages can basically be built within Notion and then attached into this sort of framework. And that's a really quick high-level overview of things. Now, I want to fall back on the panelists a little bit. Omar, if I were to kind of, I don't want you to grade me on my overall kind of explanation of just exactly a cursory examination of Mural, but are there things that you want me to point out in particular about this interface or the top level view on the left that I may have missed or didn't say anything about?
I mean, I think you've shown the very database side of it. I think as the information architecture side that you were talking about for the levels structure of it all, it's also kind of like a wiki as well. I think that's also its strong side. So you can just have these pages that work kind of like a filing system of, whatever you're trying to organize, and you can keep going deep and deeper and deeper and deeper into whatever you're writing, and link back to different pages wherever you're writing. So if you, for example, start typing down some notes about ideas for meetups, you can quickly link to your meetups database really quickly from that page and just jump to that immediately. So I think that's kind of it's the two pillars of Notion.
So basically you can add a page and basically start writing notes. And then if you want to connect to an available database to draw in information, you can do that.
Yeah, like each one of your topics there in your tools and resources master board, you have a page there, and you can click on open, and then you can start typing down there, and it's like just your page where you start typing something. And for example, if you do the slash forward slash right there, you could say you write link, and you just type link, or you can do this search for it. Yep. And then you can like say meetups, so yeah, so that's like its other kind of strong thing where you're just like typing something in you can relate it quite quickly.
And to give an example of that, if I click on meetups, boop, I basically go straight to that page. Yep. So it's almost a cross link between the two.
Yeah.
Okay. Natasha, if you're there, I believe you're there. I just don't have the video up at the moment. So in terms of an overview of, is there anything I should point out that I missed here?
I think you did a good job with the overview. Two things that I wanted to point out that I use it for are on the top left, just under Team Bunyan, there's a quick find. And everybody who is a Notion user has this search. They recently improved their search algorithm, and I thank the team for that. Again, I'm not part of the Notion team.
Yeah.
But it was a little slow, but it's so fast now, and it's fantastic. I mean, you don't have a lot of data in your Notion, but like, just type Omar. See, it found Omar's name that you just typed like a minute ago. And that same logic applies to, you know, something that you're like, oh, I was talking to Kathy 6 months ago, and I know I made meeting notes about it, but you're like, man, did I put, like, where is that? Or, you know what I mean? You can just quickly type in, you know, if you can remember something from the meeting or the person's name, however you do your note systems, it's easy to find. And then the other thing I'll point out is here in this page on tools and resources, you see the filter on the top right, just to the left of the new button. Yeah, so you can create custom, I think this is fairly new as well, but it's my new favorite feature where you can create custom, if you know anything about databases, this is basically like creating select from where in a database. And so you can just filter different views of the database. So yeah, you can go through and say like, okay, anything that contains, so it'll be more like if you were to say like, if
you were to say like tags, for example, you only want it to be your education stuff. So you go to tags and it contains education, and then you're only going to have an education view.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then automatically loads those tabs into place.
Yeah, and then here's the other thing that's cool is that you can say, I just want education and I just want mural, and you can create one view of those two together. For example, you can join them as you would with, you know, with a database. So that's really cool.
Especially if they have both.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So the logic here would be a true and join. So yeah, so you'd want to do or on that because it seems like there's only, So in that way, it's very powerful. If you have a lot of items in your database and, you know, you have regularly the need, like, so for me, how I use this right now is on my to-do board, I sort things by urgency and importance. And then I have views for what's urgent and important and views for what's not urgent, not important. Actually, I don't have a view for that one, but like urgent and not important or whatever those quadrants are in that. And then I switch to those views just to see what's tagged in there for items that need to be done, basically.
Yeah, the only thing that happens with that is, so when you do create those filters, that filter is set for that view. So if you go over to all resources underneath tools and
Yes.
resources there, you'll have to then name each view of what you want it to be. So for example, for me, in my personal account, I have like views for all work. I have views for work focused. I have views for my master, just everything, backlog, like backlog home, backlog work. It's like this long list. But then I'll have like, and that can get a little bit long after a while because I do have probably like 12 views. That's all like personal or kind of like something that I call professional, which has to do with like meetups and stuff that I do. And like learning stuff, stuff for work. So that kind of, and I have pretty much like 3 views for each category.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's an interesting point. Like I have I separate. So even though my account is my personal one and my work one, I separated them out in my sidebar. So my like work tasks go in one list and my other stuff go. So yeah, but you're right. That could get really unruly if you have 12 in that drop down.
I do. I just have a master and it's just everything. And then I have different filters for different views.
Yeah. Interesting.
I
also
think, and I've kind of run into that a little bit, like a bit of a roadblock with this that I wish Notion could do better. And that is sometimes I'm just doing something and I want to just like quickly add a to-do somewhere and it goes straight into my Notion master list as like it just adds it on automatically. And I haven't really figured out how to do that straight from like the command, like the typing line.
Yeah, I would agree. That's actually, so how I manage that right now, but would like to, would like to see a feature around that is I just create like a to-do with a
You want to walk me through it, Natasha?
Sure, yeah. So like, let's go back to that meetup for Omar example that you were, I think you were in a note somewhere. Maybe it was a task. I think you were in tasks and you created like something around.
Or you could
Omar.
just use the quick find.
That's right. We could just use our quick find and go to Omar and then figure it out.
Yeah.
Where did I put
Somewhere
him?
where
I put him on. He's on the master board. There he is.
Okay, so down in the body copy section, like what I would do here, it's like, okay, I know that I need to, I don't know, book or create a Zoom meeting link, or I don't know, you need to do some logistics around organizing the meetup for Omar. So I would just do like / and then like to do, and then hit enter and just whatever, some random task, create a Zoom link. And then I do @ sign.
And then just basically find the person.
You could tag the person in. You could also tag in just like remind you to do it tomorrow or whatever. So then what I'll do like once a day is just take all my reminders and transfer them into a task list. So if I'm in a page and I have like a to-do item that comes up in my mind, this is how I create a hook to it for my future self to put it where it needs to go.
So then you said right here, you said create a Zoom link for Omar to join, and then @ tomorrow.
You said right. So you said @ Robert Scrobe. So that would tag you in, Robert, to like check out this task and put it into your workflow. But if you didn't want to, if this was just like for your own internal planning, you could just say to join, and then at the end of the line just say like remind me tomorrow. So like @ right, so you could do it that way, but you can't find it that way. Okay. So if you do @ and then hit hit enter.
So the date is like remind tomorrow. So is this built into the actual Notion application? Is when you put that in there, you'll do that?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you can also customize that date. You can customize that date to be like in 6 months or something or whatever.
So if you just click on it, then basically, this is what I know Notion for, is that it's infinitely complex, and it's sometimes you just have to play with it to the point where you kind of know how to do certain things versus what you don't know how to do. But there's
how does that reminder come up then?
So that reminder comes up. It comes up on the top left-hand side, like
You
on
get
the date.
notification.
Yeah, you get a little notification on the top left-hand side. If you have the mobile, so here's like you can kind of, so this is why I like Notion, is that you can create your own like custom workflow. So what I've just like suggested here is just my own workflow hack for bridging that feature that Omar was like, it'd be nice if they had a thing for this, which I agree. It seems like a really obvious next step. But this is how I do that right now. And then I just take all my reminders of things that need to get kind of put into places and do that at one time in the day, kind of like going through your inbox once a day or something.
So would you create your own page for? Would you create your own page for all those reminders, or did they come up in something like this, where it's like a calendar view?
They come up in the top left-hand side. There won't be any there, right? Yeah, exactly. So you don't have any right now because whatever, we just created one, but tomorrow you'll have that one that you just created. Actually, if you look at your time zone, I think you can do it down to the hour. You might be able to demo it in like 5 minutes or something. Oh yeah.
Date format and time zone.
It's just,
so if you do include if you slide include time to the right there. So that's just
above the date and time. Just include time. It's just above the gear ratio date and time format.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I see it now. Okay. And it turns red if you're basically as an invalid date or time. So let's kind of make it 8:35.
Yeah.
34, 38.
Yeah. So just whatever time your computer is set to, make sure it's a few minutes. And then
okay, there you go.
That should pop up.
It should. I mean, if it's key to my particular time zone, then that should basically work.
Yeah.
Okay. So while we're kind of playing around with reminders, for those of you who are on Zoom or on YouTube, if you have questions that you want to ask at this point, we're going to be kind of fielding those every 15, 20 minutes as I kind of go through different sections. And let me look at the chat real fast because I've been kind of concentrating on this. Dirk basically goes, my main agenda calendar is an Outlook on Microsoft Office 365. Can the Notion calendar be synced with my Outlook calendar?
No.
I think it can, from what I understanding, but do Omar and Natasha, do either one of you work with this and to the point where you're syncing things up, or?
So my first instinct was no. I don't think it can be synced with external calendars.
Yeah. As far as I know, you cannot sync it.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it can be synced with external calendars, that would be really, really interesting. I recently was talking to a company that does a digital first marketing strategy for their food company and launched their entire business on TikTok. And they're just like content creators like craziness. They are making videos and content on that platform like every day, and they're, it's interesting to see their organization. And I asked them, what tool are you guys using to organize this content creation? And they were like, Notion. I'm like, wow, that's so great. So somehow they do have a calendar that is hooked to the external APIs, which you can do a lot with Notion on that. And API is an application programming interface, so you can talk to other databases and talk to other web applications and stuff. So that's another kind of advanced level thing in Notion that you can do a lot with. Oh,
yeah.
You have connected apps too. Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, it looks like that it's not even there yet. Like for some, even the ones that are third party, like automate.io, a lot of this doesn't exist. So to answer your question, Dirk, I don't believe so, at least from a cursor examination of how to do it. But yeah, I don't think it integrates in that regard.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, yeah. Sorry, Dirk. I don't know of any, like I use Google Calendar and I don't know of external calendar that it integrates with. But it does have some things like, for example, if you're using Kindle, if you use Kindle and you like read books on Kindle and you make highlights, you can input, you can bring in all of your highlights into your Notion workspace. And so then like everything you've ever highlighted in any Kindle book you've ever read can be searchable in your quick find database. So if you're ever, you know, thinking like, what was that quote from that book about whatever, it's like you can find it super fast and easily, which is actually a better method than what Amazon has available on its front end for searching highlights. So that's useful as well. That's a great,
and it's kind of like, I think Asana is one of the apps that you can connect with, and that would be kind of like your, I think because more Notion is a bit more of like tasks and to-dos, if you want to use the calendar in that way.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, I mean, I'm not making excuses or anything, but Google Calendar and Outlook might be more, you know, kind of set up, I guess, for meetings and things like that.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody uses it differently.
Susanna says Asana, Trello, Evernote, and Google Drive are connected apps that can basically, you know, sync with or basically work with Notion. So that's good to know. I knew Trello did. I wasn't sure about the other ones. Evernote's interesting, and I agree with you, Natasha. Evernote needs an overhaul. They are working on it, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like Internet Explorer. They had a good product, and then they kind of let it languish, and their competitors caught up to them, I think.
Yeah, I'm always looking at, when I look at a tool to use, I'm always looking at what the development team is doing in terms of support and in terms of their ongoing product. Like if you've ever worked in the software side of things, you know how that cadence goes, and you can tell if a product is getting the attention and resources in terms of like time and engineer time specifically, that if it's you can see where it's going.
Yeah.
And so that was my concern with Evernote, was that I used it all through my first degree, and I had just so much in there. But then I started noticing like, man, the integrations, it's just the search isn't very, anyways, enough about Evernote, but I just started looking for another tool.
Yeah.
So the Evernote integration that Susanna mentioned, I actually did that. And what that is that it's just basically a way to import all of your Evernote notes into Notion. And that was great because it helped me to, you know, just basically bring over all of that. And in the beginning, it was a bit of a mess just because my like naming and sort of my system like had some duplicates and that kind of thing.
So one thing, really quick, one thing you can do if you're sitting at home watching on the Zoom or the YouTube side, I encourage you to start up with like a very just a basic free demo of Notion on your side, so you can kind of click on the same things that we're clicking on. So it's not just us kind of explaining our experiences and kind of clicking through different things in the interface. If you want that passive experience, you can, but it also helps if you start up your own space on Notion, even if it's a free account, and start, you know, working through some of the things that you see there. So if we start getting a bit more granular on the pages and how things are built, right now I'm in the kind of in the space where you can use templates. It will be one of those things where it's something where you can learn in real time at the same time that you're listening from us. And for reference, if you hear a voice in the background, it's my 8-year-old who's at school. So we're sharing the same room. Hopefully it doesn't go crossing too much. I didn't mean to cut you off, Natasha, but another question I have for you and Omar is that would either of you be open to kind of sharing like a sample page of how you use Notion so that people can see how you go about using the application? You don't have to do it right away. Like I'm going to go through a couple more things, but would you be willing to kind of share that with everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Just before you close this template thing too, though, I wanted to just say templates are like, in addition to the wiki function and the database function, I think templates are actually the growth potential by design of Notion. So what Robert has up here is like a selection of different templates. And there's ones around design, education, engineering. There's tons of categories of templates, which are all the sort of standard categories of workflow that are super helpful. And you can use this template. You can just hit like use this template, and then it'll pop right up, pre-populated exactly as you see it in the example on the left-hand side, and then go forward with that, which is super great. You can also create your own templates, and there's also a community of people who are creating their own templates, which you can find through the Notion website. So if there's a specific sort of edge case scenario that you're looking for, yeah, here's the template gallery that Robert's pulled up on his web browser. People have created their own templates and have shared them with the community. And so I think whenever a product has something that's extensible in that way, it starts to become very, very useful, because then early adopters start sharing, and then those people who are sharing, other people start using them, and then you can duplicate their template and build on it. And then if you build something that you think would be useful to other people, you can also go back and share your template back. So you start to create more and more useful systems, which I think is really cool. So like, yeah, you can just see some examples of, I mean, I'm going to say like random people have created this, but like it could be useful for your thing. So just in like a few clicks, you can bring in another person's like useful tool. So that's nice.
And it also looks like you can search within the categories themselves, depending on what you're interested in doing. So there's ones for hiring. There's there's resumes, portfolios. So basically, the community has shared a lot of different examples of how things are done. So if you do a little bit of exploration around podcasting and what other things are doing, some of these are a couple of years old, but the framework is still the same, especially the kind of the color coordination and the links to things. So in other words, whether you're talking about just working on either, and I would assume there's also a desktop app or a remote app, as well as the web one, you have the ability to break ground on something that you want to do, depending on what your interest is. And then these are all common uses of, say, a particular category, like a quick note or a task list. So that if you could see yourself kind of using this for something that you do, this is a way of showing the examples of different things that you can do with it, all the complexity. But it is like kind of a, it's two things. It's an introduction to the complexity of the tool, but it's also a huge time suck, because you'll have to spend an hour or so to kind of get the hang of how all this information is kind of structured and worded. I could tell you straight off that some of the things like sales, you go to the CRM, it basically has all these things that have the same metaphor, the visual metaphor and the structural metaphor. But in terms of how people go about it, there's different things that it can connect to that you can learn about. But again, it would take you some time to really understand how all of this kind of integrates with one another. I was checking the chat really fast and see if we got, oh, Andrea has to go. Elisa asks, I've heard of people creating websites on Notion. Is it possible? It seems like it has the framework for it, especially with the boards. I know that you can make certain pages public so that you can link to them externally, but I don't know if there's Notion looks like it has its entire, it has its website in Notion, but I have a feeling that's probably slightly modified. And Natasha or Omar or anyone on the chat, would you like to comment on whether or not you can export some Notion pages into a web environment?
Yeah, I know you can do it. I've never created an actual website through Notion, which I know you can though. So you definitely can create. So the key link that you can do is take your domain name and connect it to the Notion server of the page so that people can like type into their browser search bar, like myurl.com or whatever, and it'll go to this Notion view. page. I know there's a way to connect that. I haven't done that myself personally, but what I have done is I've shared pages, which is super easy. So Robert, on the top right-hand side, there's a share button. And so you can basically just turn it on.
There you go. So there it's on, but it's...
Yeah, that's it. It's super easy.
It just has the Notion
use.
one. So that if you wanted to have like if you wanted to have a point with your own URL, that may take a little finagling in terms of making sure that the records are pointing to the right URL and the right IP. So yeah, I'm sure there can be redirects that can also be created as well if you know your way around kind of doing domains and such.
Yeah, exactly.
Robert, it looks like
I don't know, Omar.
Sorry?
I was saying, telling Robert his update came in, so that must have worked.
I was going to say, yeah, there's something that says, like we said, the updated 835, and there it is right there. And it still kind of makes it into a checkbox so that I can basically go in and go, have I made that webinar for Omar yet? Of course I haven't, because I've been too busy talking to Natasha about different things within Notion.
About the website thing. The redirect, absolutely, you can tie a domain to it, but you are kind of you're limited only to the view of its capabilities, obviously, basically, which is this. And you can still like section things into different columns, like 2 columns. You don't just have to have this skinny thing right here. You can also make it a full page. And from the full page, now you can play around and have 3 columns, for example, and you can do it by rows as well. So you can kind of play around with it like that. You're not going to get a very dynamic website, of course, but it's definitely, a pretty good blog. I mean, this looks like a great blog, for example. So if you wanted to publish something like that, you can totally do that. But backgrounds, things moving around, you're just not going to, it's not meant for that at all.
Yeah, this is from Mikhail DeVos, and I apologize if I slaughtered your name. I'm bad at that. But he sent this along with my compadres over at Deep Work that I've worked with before in the past. They have something called the Hypersprint, and I remember seeing this before. But I think this is an example of something that can sit on the web as its own standalone page. And I'm assuming also that it has links to kind of engage. I would wonder what the callback references to this is, but I would definitely want to see what the analytics would look like if you hook this up with, say, like GA4 and how this would handle like traffic to this site versus Notion. It would be another layer of complexity that would be really interesting for me, being a geek about that sort of stuff. So thank you, Mikhail, for kind of for providing this for everybody, just to kind of show what the extended URL on the web would look like. But yeah, it does look like this one uses Notion.so. Dapo asked, Natasha, would you mind walking through importing Kindle highlights, please?
Yeah, let me just see if I can find, actually, I literally have I have a Notion page
would this be
about that.
Would this be an appropriate time to share that out, Natasha? Would you be willing to kind of share your screen and show that?
Yeah, let me just, yeah, let me just, okay, so I'm, yeah.
While you're getting that together, I can point out one additional thing. If you ever have a particular page that you want to save as part of your favorites, there's a thing here where you just basically click on favorite, and then it basically puts things into favorites, and then it gives it its own subpage over here. So you can basically go directly to something that you had marked as something that you want to get at very quickly. Favorites is a way of doing that. And if I click on this, then that goes away. Same thing with kind of going over here. If I go to, say, doodle availability, week 1 availability, because we want availability twice in our doodles, I can actually favorite it right in the page itself. And bing, it shows up right over here on the favorite side of things. I would personally use favorites as a way of doing daily or weekly tasks. So if I knew that I had to get something done, I could basically put in this favorites and know that it was basically a kind of a mini to-do list without having to kind of write it out in verbatim. But that's just an example personally of how I would go about doing things.
Robert, anyway. I see that you have other people on your board. How many people can share a Notion? I see that there are I mean, with how many people? Because I think that the workspaces are the shared ones, and then you have your private.
Yeah, so Naya was kind enough to share her particular her Notion account with everybody. So she was the person that organized all of this and brought everyone together for this particular sprint that we were doing, and organized this entire board along with a couple other people, and really did a lot of work in getting involved with this. So I have to kind of reference her and her work with doing this. But this is the best example I could have of something that came directly from the GVDS, where somebody said, okay, let's take a look. Let's kind of put all our resources in one place. So we're looking at and learning from how to do the design sprint. But to answer your question, yeah, it was Naya's account. And then she basically added all the team members to kind of collaborate and communicate through this interface.
You don't know if it's like a paid account or is all free?
It's definitely a paid account. The one that I believe, and I'll go to Notion's pricing really fast. Let me see if I can pull that up. Let me pause the share real fast, and I'll do Notion pricing and get into that a bit. Okay.
I will say really quick on the pricing, like my experience is the limitation around it is the file upload. That's the one that I noticed, and that's what kicked me over to the priced model. So the file upload size of the file is limited on a free. But for the longest time, I used free because I didn't notice any limitations that bothered me.
And I think Elisa, it's probably this one that she was using. So it was eight per month. So I think she had a temporary expense for the team, and then kind of had it so where she would add in everybody that was there. And I think a couple of us took to it. And then down here is probably the plans and features. So like you're saying, yeah, the file uploads you were talking about, Natasha, in terms of like the limitation of the size and the amount of guests.
Yeah,
it's probably there. So it could be Personal Pro. It could be like the $4 one. Okay.
Yeah, I do the Personal Pro, and on that one, I have a bunch of people on various pages. I don't know how many people, like, I don't know, let's say 24, for example. I don't actually know, but just on like particular pages for particular things, like, or particular projects, or even notebooks, like I'll bring in people on a notebook, and then you can just share that notebook with them, and then everything in that notebook, all the pages, all the sub pages, and all the sublinks and everything, they can see basically.
So would it be fair to say that Notion is the kind of tool you would use if you have a lot of complex information that you want to kind of organize in a structured format, and be able to have extensibility into general tools that you use elsewhere, like Trello and otherwise? And if you're working on a team, be able to share that out so that everyone's kind of being able to reference the same information. Yeah. Thanks for coming, Kathy. I'm not just singling out, but does that sound right, Natasha?
That's my experience of it. Yeah. Okay. It's a great tool. Like you can go from like really complex, and you can also go really simple. So it just, and I like that customizability, because you're not forced into the complexity. But if you need it to grow with you, which was what my experience of Notion was. It grew with my need, and it just kept growing, and it keeps like giving me options and ways. So, but as Omar said, there's that like missing bridge right now with tasks. So, but here's what usually happens. Every quarter or so, they'll send an update email, and I don't know what you think, Omar, but I'm pretty impressed with their team with their team workflow of how they're moving through their feature list. They do a great job managing the development side of it.
I'm sorry, what is that?
I just want to point out.
Oh, just around like how their features are released and their sort of cadence. And
I haven't really gone into that too much. I actually haven't seen what their
they have
how they're coming out with everything.
I'm trying to remember where I saw this. They have a page on their website that's like, this is basically, they're just like, this is where we're at in our development cycle, and this is what features we're working on.
Yeah, I really appreciate it when when companies and startups are doing that. Actually, it's kind of rare. I think but it shows like a lot of transparency and
yeah,
and like thought towards their. We used to try to do that at a company I used to work at, and it can get kind of like political and messy internally.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But if you do it well, I find I appreciate it very much, for sure.
Yeah.
So do you want to, Susanna, Susanna, sorry, Natasha, would you be willing to kind of showcase what Dapo was asking about the bookmarks you're talking about, or how to link those out?
Yeah, sure.
I'll stop my share on my side.
Will, okay, let me just see. Okay, so I'm gonna hit share. Let me know if you guys can see the masterclass page. Can you see my Notion? Okay, cool. So, okay, I was like, when Davo asked that, I was like, my Notion showing it publicly on a live stream. But so one thing I'll say before I jump over to the Readwise integration is what I like about this is like, Masterclass online, you can join their service and see all these amazing, great people doing their thing. But how I formatted it here is with this header image. I'll just quickly, you can change the cover to be whatever you want, which for me, from a visual side of things, I like it. I think it's pretty, it's cute, whatever. You can also bring in images from Unsplash, and that's really cool in my opinion. And this is actually new as well. I don't know when this feature came in, but I just recently found, there we go. And then you can also reposition it. So depending on the theme of your notebook, you can visually make it beautiful, which I like that there's some attention to that. And then you can also make icons for notebooks. So masterclass, I just put this kind of like, my thought was like the image is like temple of knowledge kind of thing, like a Greek thing. I don't know if that's what this icon actually represents, but you can select different icons depending on the notebook. So I like that visual element. But yeah, so Readwise. So like this is just like a random, I just have this like random thing of like, here's just like a random list of all the ideas that have like come into my mind randomly at some point.
And what view is that versus the table one? What view is this?
It's a gallery view.
I think this is the gallery.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, this is gallery view. So yeah, let me just see. Well,
you have to actually like stop sharing, and yeah, the chat goes up.
Yeah,
it's really strange.
Yeah. Oh, that's annoying. Okay.
It looks like Abel posted his own link on how to do personal productivity for reference in case people are interested in. So yeah, there you go. There's a link you were talking about. I'm being able to.
Yeah. So that's integrated. Yeah.
Okay.
And cool. It's just like you literally just connect them. It took me like 5 minutes. I still need to figure out the timing of when it pulls in, because it seems like it's pulled in a bunch of old books that I forgot I read. So that was kind of an interesting walk down memory lane. But then apparently going forward, it will bring in new books as they happen. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But I think it's very useful. So.
Niels was asking, as you put a lot of information into Notion, it can become kind of a personal library. His question is, how do you go about being locked into the software? And see your example of switching from Evernote.
Yeah, the idea of a personal library was exactly like, I wanted it to be a way to like externalize all these things and like have like a searchable database of my mind. And I also, that's why I looked at like the development cycles and the teams and that kind of thing. And you're right, with any software that you use, even your Gmail, like any Zoom, any software, you're locked into their ecosystem, you're locked into a dependence essentially. But with Notion, you can export. I don't know, like, I don't know. I've never tried to do that and tried to bring it, like, I've never tried to go from Notion back to Evernote and export and import that file. I haven't seen that. Yeah, that might be interesting. But yeah, you are always locked in to any system that you're using. So I would guess, we could just check right now, what file type do they export as? I would guess it's probably,
I would assume they have different formats you can go with. And by the way, if anybody who's watching on the panel, on the attendee side or on YouTube, or even on the panelist side, if you have questions or you want to kind of explore different aspects of Notion, this is the time to do so. We have about 25 minutes left, so I want to make sure that I get to any particular questions that people have about what we're looking at or what we're exploring. So especially on the panelist side, if you want to come off mic and basically like say what you'd like to know about, then now is probably the time to do it. I know that that Susanna had a question about some tips for getting started in structuring your personal workflow and info and ideas. I have some answers to that based on my old experience with Notion, but if anyone else would like to comment or ask questions, please do so. This is the time. Or if you just want to consume, that's totally fine as well. No?
I had another question then. I think we have a lot also, Niels, and somebody wrote in the chat too. Yeah,
he was the one that wrote about, Niels in particular wrote about about being locked into the software and basically from switching for Evernote. There was Susanna's comment about starting. Abel's was really interested in seeing how teams use Notion. Yeah, but I think the example I gave with the GVDS is one example of how teams can use it. But it's just that there wasn't as much activity, obviously, because the GVDS at that point was still lightning fast. And you really had to kind of take the time to put a lot of information in there. Natasha provided a link to back up your data on Notion.
You can use it
there's
as,
definitely a way.
Can you use it as you use Trello for like working with a group with deadlines and this kind of things? Okay.
100%.
Yep. In fact, one of the examples.
Yeah, and I would actually show. I'm trying to see if like I can show.
I know
our work thing from like before, but I just don't know how to like block certain things. I'd have to show you the whole screen. But
Omar, I'd have to say, like, I was like, yeah, I can totally show this, and then I was like trying to see like how I can. I don't know.
Yeah, because usually you can like blur something out, right? Like if you do like a YouTube tutorial, you can just get a little box and blur it out. I don't have that application.
Yeah, so I like filtered it to like private, but then even then I'm like, oh, I don't know, like but yeah. And then the other thing with the search is so good that it does go across the private and the public. So you can see just even in my like drop down search history, there's lots of stuff that hard to share or hard to filter out, I guess, which is interesting.
One example of a Kanban task list is this, where basically you can create new tasks depending on what you want to do with things. So if you say like set up a meeting with Naya about part 2 and basically have that here. Now I just put a note in here as a task, but if I want to go into it, I can actually get into a bit around what it's supposed to be. Where on the property side of things, you can basically get into the description, you can assign it, you can do different things with it. So I can assign it to, let's say I assign it to me. And I go back into this. I can also do more with it and get into the task type. So I can basically make it a pre-sprint or sprint depending on which one it is, or I can add a new one. So your tasks lists in here can be this version where it's kind of like a Kanban version, or you can switch the view. So it's more of a list like you see in Keep or in some other the kind of list versions that you have. But really you can tailor these kind of these views depending on what you're used to doing, how you're used to doing things. And with the teams in terms of wikis, I've just created a new page here. in terms of what this is, but I can essentially I'll go back into templates, and I can go into this where I can look for an actual wiki type. So I can do a search here and basically do wiki, and I believe, oh no, it says it's going to stay in here. Actually, I'm not sure if I thought you could actually
probably play around a little bit with yours if you don't, like if you go to your, do you have something where you have like multiple people on there? Like in one of your
tools and resources is, but I don't think I've assigned people especially to this when I was working out last night.
It's really easy to do though. So if you go all the way to the right and add a new column, sorry, you scroll to the right on the table, and you add their text, and you can go person. So that's your column right there, and you can move it. You can move it to wherever you want.
Okay. So you've got the type,
and you could just name it, for example, people or team or something. Yeah, and then so right there, say that like one of these things is a task that you want to assign to somebody. You can just type in one of the rows, say, whatever, it's the first or the second one, and you can just click on somebody there. So it's assigned to that person. And yeah, or a couple people.
You can select multiple people depending on who you want.
So then, and then if you were to create another column, for example, and you can put, instead of text, you can switch it to date. And that date can be something that they like to do in Notion that I've seen a lot is a due date, that's DUE date, and a due date, DO date. So you can actually, you can actually assign for when people are going to start working on something, but then the limit of when it actually needs to be delivered are two different dates there.
Yeah.
And you can set reminders again. So so each one of those people will get a reminder only for them for that task.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'm assuming that do Omar and Natasha, do both of you work off of the desktop version of Notion, or do you work off the web version like I'm doing?
I saw Natasha right now using her desktop version, maybe because she didn't want to share her browser, but I honestly don't use the desktop version too much. For me, it's just really quick just to open up a tab and just start working on it like that. I haven't really seen necessarily the benefit, at least for me, to work on my desktop only. I mean, maybe besides like bandwidth or something like that, but I don't, even there, it takes really little bandwidth. So I'm not really sure if like, yeah, I don't know, Natasha, why would you think that what's the benefit over using the app over the web browser?
That is so interesting, I use the desktop version. I think I originally downloaded it just so that I could like work offline with it. I've used the web-based version like when I was working on other people's computers, that kind of thing. So I find the web-based version really good for that. But right now I'm actually pretty well exclusively desktop app and the mobile app. I wanted to mention, I don't know if they have an iPhone app, but they definitely have an Android one, which I use all the time. So I would say the mobile app is great for like on the go task creation stuff. Or even
Natasha,
like I have
Abel says that they do have one for iOS as well.
Oh, good. Not surprising because they're a great team and that's a good market for them to be in. But yeah, it's great to have a mobile version because then if you're using it as a to-do list, and then the other thing I use it as is I have like a recipe book that I just throw all my recipe links into. So when I'm cooking dinner, I'm like, what's that recipe for that thing? I just have my phone there and I can pull it up, which is super useful. So the mobile is great for that. Web-based versus desktop, I actually don't know what the difference is in the feature sets. I haven't found a difference in my workflow, I guess is the short answer.
I mean, I would say if you're kind of traveling around, if you want to use it offline, it's great, obviously.
Yeah.
But if otherwise, I just don't see the reason to open up another app on the computer.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It can quickly kind of take over some of the things that you do elsewhere, depending on how much time you spend with it. Susanna had a question about tips for getting started. So I want to cover that before we get towards the end of our session. So a really easy way to kind of get into Notion or to start with is not necessarily adding pages or kind of getting the complexity of all of this, but going straight to templates. Specifically, the ones that are personal. By the way, my son has finished something. Basically going into something here that you think you could use. Because this kind of gets into and it structures the start of what this could be. And this isn't something that you need to keep. But the idea is that you're going to basically get a hang of what these different functionality is. So I usually go straight for task list. Task list is a really easy way of being able to use Notion right straight out the bat for something that you're doing. And it'll introduce you to how to do certain things within Notion. And in case you don't know, it's a matter of playing it around, Susanna. So task list is the first thing that you can get started with. And then from there, just kind of do some things related to like a typical day that you have. If it's something that you would want to explore it, but this is a good introduction to some of the features and functionality. Another thing you do in templates that I've done in back is quick notes. Like Natasha was saying, basically something that will allow you to do different things within Notion that relate to like some things that are related to anything going on professionally or personally. But this particular template has all the features that you would typically find on a quick note document. And you can get into creating these as well. They'll always be here on the left as private pages, but this will give you the opportunity to practice or at least try out different things within the interface. Does that help you with your question as you had intended, Susanna, or are you looking for specifics?
No, that's helpful. It just, there's so much that it can do that at some level it's like, and thinking of it like a database, so I can structure all the pieces. It's like, okay, how do I want to organize the whole database of my mind and what's in there? So I know I worked with Natasha a little bit, so that'd be great to tap into her mind, I think. But what's in here?
I will say for the first year that I used Notion, I just used the provided templates and I didn't get fancy. So, I would say don't jump in the deep end. Just kind of, it's nice because you can wade into it through these suggested templates. And also when I first started using it, I just used it as a way, I used it more in the wiki format just to say okay, working on this project, here's the sort of guide to everything that I'm doing for the project because we were anticipating bringing on new members and I wanted to be able to onboard them really quickly and easily to the information. And so it was just kind of a tool for that. And then the more I got into it, the more I was like, wait, I think this could be used for this idea I've had about if I could create a personal wiki for myself. And then it kind of expanded into oh, maybe I can create a library of my mind or something. So, yeah.
The great library, Natasha. Always curious.
Good to see you, Susanna. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think so. To answer Neil's question here, Robert, don't mean to hijack your MC position here. But he asked if it's if you can use it as a Google kind of a Google Doc where multiple people can collaborate. And yeah, I mean, I think if you click on that link, you should be able to start editing it as long as it has the full access switch turned on. And I think that's really cool too, kind of to go back a little bit on the website part of it too. I find that that's super, super cool. You can have something that is static and then you can have a page that's in there where multiple people, so almost like a wiki. And when you go to Wikipedia, for example, there's a section where everybody can basically type down or like write down something that's missing, something that needs to be updated. So like on the back end, there's something where people are kind of communicating, collaborating, suggesting, etc. So that's really cool about it. So if I actually found it to be a little bit easier to use than Google Docs in that sense, because you can just quickly just send a link. And I will say that it lags a little bit more than Google Docs. Google Docs obviously has a much more powerful engine behind it.
Yeah, the one thing that the one criticism of Notion that I've heard is that it can do a lot of things generally very well, but if you want really in-depth functionality that you're used to, like say with Bear or with Trello or with Docs or something else, or even a presentation software like Google Slides or PowerPoint, then you probably want to stick with those programs, especially if you want that complexity and that kind of involvement of templates and design. But what I'm showing here on the screen is basically a way to import different tool information depending on what you're talking about. Although it's interesting, I clicked on Google Docs and it looked for a local file. If I click on Trello, I think it's basically going to do what it's basically going to try to give access to different things so that you can bring them over. So it does have an integration tool involved with Notion. But yeah, it just depends really on your disposition. If you're a generalist when it comes to working with things and you don't like having 7 or 8 or 9 different tools to work with, then your draw to Notion may be a bit different than the average person. However, if you have specialized needs that require much more in-depth functionality for different things related to either notes or otherwise, then unless you really want to spend a lot of time learning Notion, then the old defaults or the ones that are dedicated to those particular tasks are probably your better bet. Anyone else think otherwise or think the same that are on the call?
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Robert. One thing I'll say about Google Docs is like, if you go into like the body of the text under jot down some text, and you're just gonna like, let's say reference like something, if you go into the copy, I can just show you a quick sort of way to connect those. If you type like /, and if you start to type drive, I think maybe you need to have it connected. Yeah, so this is something that I use. You would have to connect your Google account, etc. But if there's like a particular, I don't know, slide deck or something that is referenced and necessary, then this is how I would connect those two things together. So you can like embed a Google file. You can also, I wanted to point out, you can also embed Miro. So this is how I've started to use Miro more, is that you can actually embed the board, which is a great tool when you're doing projects that you're using Miro, but there's more around it than just the board. So that's also useful. So in that way, it's kind of like the bridge to specifics, I guess you could say. Like as Robert was saying, there's if you want to, you're not creating like an entire dynamic Miro board, but if you are doing that in a very specific way and you need to reference that back to the broader vision, then this is a great tool that connects it all together, especially if you wanted to work with somebody else, for example, around the deliverable. So yeah, Robert's scrolling through a bunch of like, Figma is another one that might be useful for this audience. You can embed PDFs, you can upload files, any file type, audio, video, images, PDFs, whatever. So yeah, there's tons there. Loom obviously is a great tool as well, which may be related to like content creation. Who knows like how you're using it, but
I'm continually scrolling. It's like I almost wanted to scroll just out of like a morbid curiosity. It's like, okay, I can do the backgrounds, I can do the text, I can change this to orange. I can do different things with it. So if I start typing, this is an orange text block, right? And if you noticed when I was doing this, I was actually dragging these so that these can become different arrangements, so that if I wanted to bring this back over here, I could do that. And then it basically takes up the width of the page. Or if I wanted to go over here, then basically I could put it there. So these little like 6 dots there here, kind of like right next to this, you're able to kind of move these around within the context of the design. And then, yeah, I could just basically add more from there if I want to. Okay.
Yeah, and something that I use a lot is the toggle as well. If you like / toggle,
Okay.
and then like you can just like name this something, and then I do that quite a lot. I use that feature a ton, and it just allows me to just kind of quickly put what might be. You can literally just say that it's the date of some note or something, some project that you're working on, and you have like a mini document just right underneath that. And if I were to like actually click a lot of those open, I have this huge post.
I had no idea I selected bacon. I'm sorry. Didn't you know that was bacon? I thought it was a landscape of some type or something, like a tree.
Calling me?
I'm hungry.
I haven't eaten breakfast yet, Robert. So
yeah, bacon for Omar. It's awesome. I agree with Omar about toggle. Sometimes I worry. That's actually why I like the search function, is sometimes in toggles you can have like super deep levels of toggle, but it also means that you can make it visually simple, but that you can like dive deep into it. So I'd say toggle and ToDo are probably my top. Toggle, ToDo, and are probably my top / commands that I use in Notion.
So if, for reference, if someone wanted to go and see use cases, so if I'm Susanna or myself or Elisa or other people that are looking to see use cases of how people do their Notion, I know that there are user groups that exchange information, tips, and other things. But if in your usage of Notion, you've shown what you do, are there use cases that you can point to on the web that you can go, okay, for someone who wants to understand how people use this tool, where would you go for examples?
I could suggest somebody called what's his name? His name is K. I think. It's KHE.
I'm about to pull up pudding. Talking about bacon. Now we're back on food.
Yeah, it's KHE, and then
I saw it right there.
Here, I can put. Yeah,
this one, right?
Yeah, I really like his Notion layout. He's definitely a power user, and he has, he works with clients. He works with. He organizes his personal life. He's got his business on there, and he actually does share how he uses it. There's also Thomas Frank. Obviously, he's a productivity guru, and he showcases Notion pretty well as well. I think Thomas Frank is really good too, because he actually has like a Skillshare. I think he has a Skillshare course on it as well. So that's who I think I would recommend off the top of my head.
Okay.
That's awesome. I don't know either of those people. I want to check them out. But I did see one of their pages mentions the Notion Clipper, which is a Chrome extension. And so if you're on a page in Chrome and you want to link it to a notebook, or you want to pull it into something, you can do that, which I use that feature quite a bit as well.
The Chrome Clipper?
Chrome, Notion. Do Chrome, Notion, web. Notion web clipper. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can, if you're on, if your browser's open, I think they have a couple other browsers that they have clippers for, but this is the one that I have, and you can just pull in a page to a database, which, depending what you're using Notion for, could be super useful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it gets a lot more deeper too with the databases. Sorry, I know we're kind of running out of time.
No, go ahead and say what you were going to say. That's fine.
Answer quickly, Susanna. Like, you can start with the database pretty basic, like kind of just like to-dos and stuff, and whatever other things that you want to, whatever other columns that you want to relate it to. And then what's really cool about it, though, is that you can get really deep with it, as like, relating to different databases, relating to different actually not workspaces. Actually, I have a little bit of trouble with that, but even what's it called? You can like kind of code up a little bit some of the specific features that you need. And I really like the fact that there's a really big community behind this, and a lot of great tutorials to help you out with it. But what I do really like is that you can start really small, like Natasha was saying, just get into the shallow end of it, and you can get really deep for sure.
Yeah, there is code that kind of powers like custom stuff. I forget where it is, but there's basically different things that you can do that related if you want to do any kind of coding in this. They're like, I forget, they're like kind of modules. Do you know what I'm referring to, Omar?
Well, I was talking about the databases.
Okay.
So, and with that, help me out here, Natasha. What am I thinking about here?
Yeah. So, well, I think Robert's asking about like customizability. And in short, the answer is yes. Like you can totally go down your own. You can make, because there's an open API, and I think in the customized page is where that all begins.
Yeah,
but
right.
I would say if you're just starting, though, I wouldn't even worry about that. I would just go to the templates, spool up a template, whatever your use case is, you can just easily get that going. And then down the road, if you're like, you know what, I really want to customize something that there's no template that currently does it, then you can code your own page 100%. But with the community that Omar mentioned, like there's so much out there. I have not yet had to do that because I've found a template for everything that I've needed.
Yeah.
So.
And Kieran's right.
There's
I'm
a
talking
template
about
for
formulas. Yeah, he was mentioning.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah,
formulas. Okay, yeah. So that's really, I actually haven't had to use that though, because I'm not like.
That's a whole bag of tricks.
So this is something that Marie-Christine Messier put into chat, and I wanted to share it. It looks like it's a Notion template. There's a free template in here, but you can also purchase it if you need to. And it's got everything that relates to businesses, quotes, service level agreements, client questionnaires, and so on. This is something that someone else has created in Notion.
Cool.
Interesting. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I do have to say we are at time. So I will, before we, well, it's already copied to everyone on there. So I'll need to do that. I'll stop my share. And what I like to do is customary for every kind of event we get done with is for those of you who are on the panelist side, I'd like you to, as for a group shot, basically have a facial expression that would kind of summarize your feelings about Notion at this point. So it can be your favorite emoji, it can be anything you like, but at the count of 3, think about the expression you would have that's related to your understanding of Notion, and we can use that as a way of kind of putting a point on this particular session and kind of ending it there. So take a few minutes to think about, how do I feel about Notion? And then once you figure out what that is, get ready and make that facial expression for the camera. Okay. Yeah, there you go. All right. On the count of three, right? 1, 2, 3. There you go. Omar, I think you should stop using the tool if that's really how it makes you feel.
It was the happy face, the really big smile.
Okay. Got it. Or either that or Notion was forcing you to be happy about it. I wasn't quite sure, but that works. All right, everyone, thank you very much for coming by and attending the session. For those of you who are here on Zoom, thank you very much for attending. All of the panelists, really appreciate all your input. Natasha, thank you for being brave and showing us some of your notes for privately about that.
Thanks, Omar.
And Omar, it was really great to have your consult in terms of where I was going with in the interface. So thank you all for coming. All those on YouTube who have been joining up and watching at different intervals, really appreciate it. And beyond that, just enjoy your week, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for Figma, I believe. I think we're doing Figma tomorrow, correct? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. So if you're interested, pop in then, same time, and enjoy the rest of your day, all right? Or your evening if you're over in Europe. Take care, everyone.